So, folks, good things are still possible and are happening. I know that a lot of the headlines and the headline grabbing stuff is, frankly, really scary and oppressive and suffocating, but good things can and do still happen. So we're going to talk about a couple of them, right? Before that, remember to like, comment, and subscribe because it really helps out the channel. And with that being said, let's jump into it. First up, the Arizona state legislature has been on a tear recently, passing numerous anti-trans bills, 3 to be precise. But do you guys remember what happened in the election just a little bit ago? Katie Hobbs won the governorship. Katie Hobbs is a Democrat. And basically, Katie Hobbs vetoed all 3 of those anti-trans bills. Okay? They would have banned colleges from talking about gender identity. They would have banned the ability to update birth certificates. They were basically designed to prevent trans people from being talked about or even transitioning. It's great. Like, good job, Katie. Like it's just, it's wonderful. Here's a quote from one. Today I vetoed SB 1694. Our state universities and community colleges play a vital role in developing Arizona's workforce. Jeopardizing their state funding with a bill that lacks clarity would lead to negative effects on the state's workforce and economy. Or here's another one where she talks about this. Today I vetoed House Bill 2438. This bill will not lower costs, will not increase opportunity, and will not enhance security or freedom for Arizona. I encourage the legislature to focus on real issues that matter and impacts people's everyday lives. Let's go. Let's go, Katie Hobbs. Good job. If you're in Arizona, consider calling the governor's office to thank her for vetoing these horrid bills. Okay? So, luckily, in Arizona, Republicans lack the votes to actually override a governor veto. But, like, this is one of the reasons why, hey, you should get involved with your local DSA. Get involved with your local Democrats. Because getting people like this into office who are going to do the right thing when, the moment calls, it's really important. Getting those wins literally means the difference between life and death for some people. You know that if those policies passed, if those became law, there would be some trans people who would not make it, who would despair and succumb to it. And that's I don't know. I like seeing the W's rack up. Also, in a similar vein, we've got another governor racking up the W's. Trump administration settles with Maine over funding freeze after dispute over trans athletes. This is all basically just a way of saying Janet Mills, the governor of Maine, beat the Trump administration. She dared them to fight, and she goddamn won. Okay? So basically, for those of you who forgot what happened, Janet Mills told Donald Trump to his face that they would not be complying with anti-trans, attempts to force anti-trans stances onto their state's educational system. Okay? And, when Donald Trump threatened the federal funding for the state, she said, "We'll see you in court." Well, the Trump administration decided not to see them in court. Yeah. Basically, the Trump administration did start to try and turn off funding, The court said, no, you can't do that until we actually adjudicate this. Yeah. And basically, the state then was like, got a federal judge to basically say, you guys are going to win this case, most likely. And, well, because Maine held the line, they now have millions more dollars to spend on student education without the interference of the federal government. So, we goddamn won. Maine Attorney General Aaron Frey put out this statement. It's unfortunate that my office had to resort to federal courts just to get USDA to comply with the law and its own regulations, but we are pleased that the lawsuit has now been resolved and that Maine will continue to receive funds as directed by Congress to feed children and vulnerable adults. Because, oddly enough, this part of the federal government's case against Maine was predicated from the USDA, the Department of Agriculture. And the reason for that was because Donald Trump tried to cut off funding for their school lunch programs. Funding that is administered through USDA. But, when you stand your ground against a fascist, when you bop them on the nose, they back down, because ultimately this is a powerless and cowardly movement. They're going to try to bluster. They're going to try to intimidate you. They are going to try to get you to cower out of fear of what they may do. Don't let them trick you like that. Because, folks, we've got other major wins to talk about in a similar vein. Many of you may have heard, a month or so ago, that Donald Trump began issuing executive orders targeting individual law firms. Basically, these executive orders said that if these law firms did not agree to provide pro bono services, did not agree to adhere to Trump administration demands, that they would basically be blackballed from federal contracts. And anyone who worked with the federal government wouldn't be able to work with these law firms. Okay? And, some of them collapsed preemptively and made agreements with the Trump administration. Those agreements do not appear to be public. They appear to be not with exactly the Trump administration. I should correct myself. They appear to be with Donald Trump himself. But none of these agreements have been made public. However, they pledged the resources of the law firms to Donald Trump, for free, essentially. They agreed to provide millions of dollars of services to the Trump administration. And a large number of law firms have since come out saying that they're going to fight this. A number of the law firms that were targeted have been fighting it in court. A number of prominent legal scholars and experts have been retaking their oaths to the law in order to protest. And just the other day, a federal judge ruled that Donald Trump's executive order against Parkins Coie, who was basically the one leading the charge against these illegal executive orders, the federal judge ruled that it is unconstitutional and therefore null and void, effectively nixing the entire executive order. The conclusion of Judge Howell's ruling reads thusly: the U.S. Constitution affords critical protections against executive action like that ordered in Executive Order 14230. Government officials, including the president, may not subject individuals to retaliatory actions after the fact for having engaged in protected speech. They may neither use the power of the state to punish or suppress disfavored expression, nor engage in the use of purely personal and arbitrary power. In this case, these and other foundational protections were violated by Executive Order 14230. On that basis, this court has found that Executive Order 14230 violates the Constitution and is thus null and void. For the reasons explained, plaintiff is entitled to summary judgment and declaratory and permanent injunctive relief on counts 2 through 9 of the amended complaint. The government's motion to dismiss is denied. And so basically what that means is they can never, like, it's permanent injunctive relief. They cannot be targeted by this executive order. And when we're talking about these things, having a spine and actually fighting works. It works. Okay? And by the way, just to read you read you the opening of this, the memorandum opinion. The memorandum opinion, by the way, is 102 pages long. But I'm going to read you the opening paragraph here, okay? Because it's interesting. No American president has ever before issued executive orders like the one at issue in this lawsuit, targeting a prominent law firm with adverse actions to be executed by all executive branch agencies. But in purpose and effect, this action draws from a playbook as old as Shakespeare, who penned the phrase, "The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers." When Shakespeare's character, a rebel leader intent on becoming king, hears this suggestion, he promptly incorporates this tactic as part of his plan to assume power, leading in the same scene to the rebel leader demanding, "Away with him," referring to an educated clerk who can make obligations and write court hand. Eliminating lawyers as the guardians of the rule of law removes a major impediment to the path to more power. And, like, he's right. He's right. Explaining the import of the same Shakespearean statement to be that disposing of lawyers is a step in the direction of a totalitarian form of government. So, just a reminder, I believe Judge Beryl Howell is a Reagan appointee. It's some good stuff. It's some good stuff. As far as like legal opinions go, Judge Howell makes for some relatively compelling reading. Now, another couple of wins we've racked up in the courts, specifically, hey, Pennsylvania has been able to defeat 2 different efforts to restrict voting in the state. Specifically, one of these rulings relates to undated or wrongly dated mail-in ballots, because Republicans were trying to have all of those thrown out. The court has ruled that throwing out such ballots violates, the election laws of Pennsylvania. So those ballots still going to be counted. The other attempt to disenfranchise voters was an attempt to purge 277,000 people from the polls, from the voter rolls. 270, over 250,000 people from the voter rolls. That's not happening. Judges have squashed both those efforts in Pennsylvania. Okay? So there are a lot of wins happening right now. A lot of really great things are happening. And, I just want you all to know, like, I know there is a lot of tendency towards despair, especially in leftist circles, but understand that we are in some ways winning. There's a reason why Curtis Yarvin is writing posts on his blog about how, like, the fascist attempt to take over the United States has already failed. Okay? There's a reason for that. And that reason is very specifically because power hasn't been consolidated enough. It has not gotten, there's not enough control over this system. People are fighting back too much. People are aware of too much. And between the people organizing in the streets and the resistance that is awakened in the courts, because as you can see from a 102-page, essay from a goddamn Reaganite judge, they're not doing so hot in the courts. They've basically burned through all presumption of innocence that they've been, may have been able to use for, not presumption of innocence, but presumption of good faith that they may have been able to use to try and consolidate some fascist power. They've squandered all of that. Okay? And yeah, this is partly because the Trump administration is so incompetent. Absolutely. So, wins are happening all the time, folks.
My impression is that we are sustaining tons of losses but also tons of wins in the background. I want a sense of where we are headed and what to do next, but that ship sailed last November.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, what's going to happen is that, like, despite the fact that they have not been able to consolidate, a complete fascistic authoritarian power in this country, at least not yet, they still hold enough power to make our lives miserable, to break a lot of shit on the way out, And that's going to hurt. And it's going to be loss. But yeah, it's not great. What to do next is organize. Yeah, that's why I've been telling you to go to your local Democrat meetings, to go to your local DSA meetings, go protest for Tesla takedown, go protest, especially on June 14th, coming up here. Go do what you can, where you can, how you can. I'm glad, to be honest. I was crying not too long ago out of exhaustion from fighting too long without a break. Go take a break. It's okay to take a break. And I know this because I struggle with it myself. Have faith in other people who are also struggling. Have faith in, let me rephrase that. Have faith in other people who are also in this struggle with you, who are also fighting, that they will carry the burden collectively while you rest so that you can stand up and someone else can take a break. You are not the only one shouldering this burden, and we will all shoulder it together. And you should take a little bit of a break too, Lady Ringcloud. Just like a little bit of one. Because we're all in this together, and when we all shoulder the load, it becomes a little bit lighter. So, it's good stuff. All I'm trying to say here, you're not alone. And we're all doing our best, and we're going to continue to do it. And treat yourself with kindness and respect and empathy, because I know that a lot of you guys extend that to other people. Extend that same courtesy to yourself. We have to keep each other, functional, as it were. Yeah, it's no one stays on the front lines of a war, indefinitely. People cycle back and rest up, recover. We got to take the same kind of mentality. So, with that being said, let's move on, knowing that victory is possible, and we will win.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and Swishy streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. politics, Maine, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.